How does a single celebratory kiss at work become the spark that burns through a marriage in front of everyone I know? Why did my husband, humiliated in public, choose to fight back not with anger, but with paperwork and silence, turning my own story against me until the final devastating moment when I realized who the real villain was? Can I still blame him when the outcome lands in my hands? I should have seen it coming. But when you're drunk on applause and validation, you miss the quiet sounds of someone sharpening their knives. The stage lights were blinding, but I could feel every eye in the room on me as Damien Keller, our CEO, called my name. Levana Thorne, our marketing genius behind the campaign that just landed us $3 million in funding. The applause was intoxicating. After years of feeling invisible in my marriage, overlooked at family gatherings, dismissed as just another working mom, this moment felt like vindication. I walked to the stage in my red dress, the one Owen said was too much for a work event, and felt alive for the first time in months. None of this would have been possible without Levana's vision, Damien continued, his hand finding the small of my back as I reached the microphone. She's the kind of partner every company dreams of. Partner. The word sent electricity through me. When Damien leaned in for what I told myself was a congratulatory kiss on the cheek, I turned my head just slightly, just enough. The kiss landed at the corner of my mouth, lasting a heartbeat too long, and the room erupted in cheers and whistles. I was flying. This was what success felt like. This was what being seen felt like. It wasn't until I scanned the crowd and saw Owen's face that reality crept back in. He stood near the back, still as stone, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met, he simply turned and walked out. "Your husband's not much for celebrating, is he?" Damien whispered in my ear, his breath warm against my neck. "He doesn't understand ambition," I heard myself say, the words coming easier than they should have. "Some people are threatened by growth." The after-party buzzed around me like a swarm of congratulations. Marina, my closest friend, and the only person who truly understood my potential, grabbed my arm with champagne-bright eyes. "Did you see everyone's faces? You're officially the queen of this company," she gushed. "And Damien, the way he looked at you. Girl, you are glowing." "It's just professional recognition," I said, but I was already pulling out my phone to check the social media posts from the event. The photos were perfect. Me in that red dress, Damien's hand on my back, both of us looking powerful and untouchable. "Professional, my ass," Marina laughed. "When's the last time Owen looked at you like that? When's the last time he made you feel like a goddess?" I couldn't remember. Somewhere between Eva's birth 7 years ago and Owen's comfortable routine of grading papers and early bedtimes, I'd become furniture in my own life. But tonight, I was art. I posted the best photo with the caption, "When your vision becomes reality, grateful for partners who see your worth." The likes started pouring in immediately. When I got home at midnight, Owen was reading in bed, his face carefully neutral. The apartment felt smaller after the expansive ballroom, our modern condo suddenly seeming cold and cramped. "How was the rest of the party?" he asked, without looking up from his book. "Amazing. The investors are thrilled. This could change everything for us." I kicked off my heels, waiting for him to ask for details, to show some interest in my triumph. "Good for you." "That's it? Good for me." I sat on the bed's edge, frustration building. "Owen, this is huge. This is what I've been working toward for years." He finally looked at me, and something in his eyes made me uncomfortable. "I saw the photos online. Very celebratory. Are you seriously going to make this about that? It was a congratulatory gesture. This is how business works, Owen. This is how successful people celebrate success." "Is it?" His voice was quiet, but there was something sharp underneath. Because from where I was standing, it looked like something else entirely. "You're being dramatic." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by his inability to understand. "You know what your problem is? You're so comfortable with mediocrity that you can't handle someone else's excellence. You teach high school history, Owen. The same lessons, year after year. You have no idea what it's like to actually achieve something meaningful. The words hung in the air like poison. I immediately wanted to take them back, but my pride wouldn't let me. Owen closed his book carefully, marking his place with the same methodical precision he brought to everything. You're right, Levana. I don't know what it's like to achieve something meaningful. He got up and gathered his pillow. I'll sleep in the study tonight. Congratulations on your success. As he closed the door behind him, I told myself I'd done nothing wrong. This was what growth looked like. This was what happened when one person in a marriage evolved and the other didn't. I checked my phone one more time before bed, 53 likes on the photo, and climbing. But as I lay alone in our king-sized bed, Owen's absence felt larger than it should have. The viral moment happened on a Tuesday. Someone had recorded the kiss and posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Boss Energy," and by morning it had 50,000 views. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, shares, comments from friends and strangers alike. "You're famous," Marina shrieked when she called me at 7 a.m. "This is incredible exposure for your personal brand." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt a strange hollowness as I watched the clip loop endlessly. The kiss looked different on camera. Longer, more intimate than I remembered. The comments ranged from supportive, "Get it, queen," to cutting, "Where's her husband?" Owen had already left for school by the time I woke up, his side of the bed cold and perfectly made. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Eva needs lunch money. Parent-teacher conferences Thursday if you're available." If I'm available. Like I wasn't her mother. At work, the attention was intoxicating. People who'd barely acknowledged me before stopped by my desk to congratulate me. Damien sent flowers with a card that read, "To my brilliant partner, here's to more celebrations." But there were other reactions too. Priya from HR appeared at my desk around 3 p.m. Her smile professional but strained. "Levana, could we chat in my office for a moment?" My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression confident. "Of course." Priya's office was sterile and uncomfortable, all beige furniture and motivational posters about teamwork. She closed the door and sat across from me, her hands folded. "I wanted to discuss the celebration video that's been circulating," she began carefully. "The one celebrating our biggest client win in company history." I kept my voice light, but my heart was racing. Yes, while we're thrilled about the business success, some concerns have been raised about optics, professional boundaries. You understand. I'm sorry, are you suggesting that celebrating a major achievement is unprofessional? Priya's smile tightened. I'm suggesting that certain displays of affection between colleagues, especially when one is in a position of authority, can create complications. For the company, for the individuals involved. Damien and I are colleagues, partners in this company's success. If people want to read more into a congratulatory gesture that says more about their minds than our actions. "Levana, you're married." The words hit like a slap. "My marriage has nothing to do with my professional relationships. I won't be shamed for being successful or for having a boss who recognizes my value." Priya was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not trying to shame you. I'm trying to protect you. And the company. These things have a way of escalating." I left HR feeling angry and defensive, but also strangely exhilarated. This was what happened when you threatened the status quo. This was what happened when mediocre people couldn't handle excellence. The rooftop party was supposed to be a small celebration for the marketing team. Damien had suggested it, and I jumped at the chance to prove that I wasn't intimidated by HR's warnings or office gossip. I wore a black dress that hugged every curve and arrived fashionably late, making an entrance that I knew would be remembered. The rooftop was strung with lights, the city spread out below us like a glittering promise. "There she is," Damien called out as I approached the group. "Our superstar." The team raised their glasses, and I felt that familiar rush of being seen, being celebrated. We talked strategy and shared war stories. and I found myself gravitating toward Damien, drawn by his confidence and the way he made me feel essential. "You know," he said as we stood apart from the group, looking out over the city, "you're wasted in a traditional marriage. You need someone who matches your energy, your ambition." "Owen's a good man," I said, but the words felt automatic, empty. Good men are everywhere, Levana. Great partners are rare. When he kissed me this time, it wasn't a congratulatory peck. It was deliberate, passionate, claiming. And I kissed him back. The flash of a camera phone brought me back to reality. I pulled away to see several phones pointed in our direction, the team laughing and cheering. But beyond them, near the rooftop entrance, I saw a familiar figure. Owen. He stood perfectly still, his face a mask I couldn't read. Our eyes met across the space, and for a moment, the party noise faded to nothing. Then he turned and walked away without a word. "Owen," I called after him, but he didn't stop. "Let him go," Damien murmured in my ear. "Some people can't handle watching others soar." But as I watched my husband disappear into the stairwell, something cold settled in my chest. The second kiss was already being uploaded, shared, commented on. And this time, I wasn't sure I could explain it away. When I got home that night, Owen was in the study with the door closed. I could hear the printer running, which was odd. He usually graded papers by hand. I knocked softly. "Owen, can we talk?" "I'm busy, Levana. Please, about tonight. There's nothing to discuss." I pressed my ear to the door and heard papers shuffling, the quiet click of a stapler. What was he doing in there? I tried the handle, but it was locked. "Since when do you lock the study door?" "Since I need privacy for my work." His voice was calm, controlled, and somehow that was worse than if he'd been yelling. I stood outside the door for 10 minutes, but he didn't emerge. In our bedroom, I checked my phone obsessively. The second video was spreading even faster than the first. The comments were more divided now, more pointed. Someone had identified Owen in the background of one shot, and people were speculating about our marriage. "Living her best life while hubby watches." "Girl, that's not your husband you're kissing." Plot twist, husband is recording for divorce court. I deleted the app and tried to sleep, but Owen never came to bed. The family lunch was supposed to be a celebration of Eva's good report card, but it turned into an interrogation. We sat in the corner booth of our usual restaurant, the same place we'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries for years, and I felt like a stranger. "So, Levana," Aunt Yelena began, cutting her salmon with surgical precision, "we've all seen the videos." My mother shot her a warning look, but Yelena continued. "The whole family is talking. People are asking questions." "What kind of questions?" I kept my voice level, but my hand tightened around my water glass. "The kind that involve marriage vows and public embarrassment." "Yelena," my father warned, glancing at Eva, who was quietly coloring on her kids' menu. "No, it's fine," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how a successful woman celebrating a career achievement somehow becomes a family scandal." "Levana," my mother said softly, "it's not about your success. We're proud of your work. It's about the way it looked." "The way it looked to whom? To people who can't stand to see a woman in her power?" Owen had been silent through the entire exchange, methodically eating his sandwich like nothing was happening. Eva kept glancing between us, her crayons forgotten. "Mommy," she said quietly, "why is everyone mad?" "No one's mad, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Adults sometimes disagree about things." "Is Daddy mad at you?" The table went quiet. Owen looked up from his plate for the first time, his eyes meeting Eva's. "I'm not mad, Eva. Sometimes grown-ups just need space to think about things." "Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents?" The question hit the table like a bomb. My mother's face went pale, Yolena's mouth formed a tight line, and my father suddenly became very interested in his coffee. "Of course not," I said quickly. "Daddy and I are fine. We're just working through some things." But as I said it, I caught Owen's expression. He wasn't agreeing. He wasn't disagreeing. He was just watching me, like he was studying something under a microscope. That night, I found Eva in her room, working on a drawing. When I looked over her shoulder, my heart stopped. She'd drawn our family, but we were all standing apart. Owen was coloured in grey and blue, standing far from the house. I was bright red and orange, but I was facing away from everyone else. And Eva had drawn herself small and colourless, right in the middle, looking lost. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I managed. "It's how we look now," she said matter-of-factly. "Daddy sleeps in the study. You're always on your phone. And I don't know where I'm supposed to be." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that we were fine, that families go through phases. But looking at her drawing, I realised she'd captured something I'd been refusing to see. "Things will get better," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "When?" I didn't have an answer. The study had become Owen's fortress. He spent every evening in there, emerging only for meals and Eva's bedtime routine. The printer ran constantly, and I started hearing other sounds: the paper shredder, the scanner, the quiet beep of the fax machine we never used. "What are you working on in there?" I asked one morning, as he gathered his coffee and headed for his sanctuary. "School projects, lesson plans, personal organization." "Personal organization?" "I'm getting my affairs in order, Levana, making sure everything is documented properly." Something in his tone made me uneasy. Documented for what? For clarity, for accuracy, for when documentation becomes necessary. He closed the door before I could ask what that meant. I tried to peek through the keyhole, but he'd covered it from the inside. I pressed my ear to the door and heard him on the phone, his voice too low to make out words, but the tone was serious, professional. Who was he talking to? Marina came over that weekend, armed with wine and encouragement. "You're letting him make you feel guilty for being fabulous," she said as we sat in the living room, Eva playing upstairs. "Look at these engagement numbers on your posts. Look at the opportunities opening up. You're building a brand, Levana, an empire. But what if I'm destroying my family in the process?" "Honey, you can't destroy something that was already broken. When's the last time Owen supported your dreams? When's the last time he made you feel desired, accomplished, seen?" She was right. Owen had become comfortable with our comfortable life. He'd stopped seeing me as anything more than Eva's mother and his domestic partner. "Damien texted me," I admitted. "And he wants to take me to the investor dinner next month, as his +1. He says I deserve to be in the room where decisions are made." Marina's eyes lit up. "That's huge. That's career-defining." "I'm married, Marina. To a man who locks himself away rather than celebrating your success. To a man who makes you feel small instead of spectacular." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "Levana, you get one life, one chance to be extraordinary. Don't let fear keep you ordinary." That night, I texted Damien back. "I'd love to attend the dinner with you." His response came immediately. "Perfect. I'll make sure you shine." But as I typed my reply, I heard the printer start up again in the study, running page after page after page. The HR meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday, and I walked in with my head high and my armor polished. Priya sat across from me with a thick folder, her expression more serious than before. "Levana, thank you for coming in. I want to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention." "What kind of concerns?" She opened the folder and pulled out printed screenshots, social media posts, photos from the rooftop party, comments and reactions. My stomach dropped as I realized how extensive the collection was. "The company has received inquiries from clients about the nature of your relationship with Damien. There are questions about professionalism, about the optics of our leadership team." "Inquiries from whom?" "That's not important. What's important is that these perceptions can damage our reputation, our client relationships, and potentially expose us to legal complications." "Legal complications?" Priya's voice was carefully measured. If an employee feels that professional advancement is tied to personal relationships, that creates liability issues. If clients question the integrity of our business partnerships, that affects our bottom line. I felt the walls closing in. Are you threatening my job? I'm asking you to consider the bigger picture. The company has invested heavily in you, Levana. We want to protect that investment, but we also need to protect our institutional reputation. And how do you suggest I do that? Maintain clear professional boundaries, avoid situations that could be misconstrued, and perhaps consider whether attending the investor dinner as Damien's guest sends the right message. The investor dinner. How did she know about that? My personal relationships are my business, Priya. Not when they become public, and not when they affect the company. I left the meeting feeling cornered but defiant. They were trying to control me, to diminish me, to force me back into a box that I'd finally broken free from. But as I walked back to my desk, I noticed the whispers, the sideways glances, the way conversation stopped when I approached. The office energy had shifted, and I was no longer the celebrated success story. I was the scandal. That evening, I found Owen in the kitchen, making dinner with Eva. They were laughing about something, and for a moment it felt like old times. "How was your day?" he asked, not looking up from the stove. "Complicated." "The HR thing?" I stared at him. "How did you know about that?" "Lucky guess." But there was something in his tone, something knowing that made me suspicious. "Owen, have you been in contact with my company?" He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Why would I be in contact with your company?" "I don't know. You tell me." "I think you're feeling paranoid because you know you're making choices that can't be defended." "I'm feeling paranoid because my husband is acting like a stranger. Maybe you should ask yourself why that is." Eva looked between us, her smile fading. "Are you fighting again?" "We're having a discussion," Owen said gently. "Why don't you go wash up for dinner?" After she left, I confronted him directly. "What's in the study, Owen? What are you working on every night?" "Personal projects." "What kind of personal projects?" "The kind that require attention to detail and careful documentation." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting right now." He served dinner in silence, and I found myself studying his face, looking for cracks in his composure. But Owen had always been good at hiding his thoughts, at maintaining control when everything around him was chaos. It was one of the things I'd once loved about him. Now it terrified me. That night, I waited until Owen was asleep and tried to get into the study. The door was locked, but I remembered that Eva had hidden a spare key years ago when she was going through her secret agent phase. I found it taped under the desk drawer and slipped inside. The study was meticulously organized in a way that was distinctly un-Owen-like. File folders lined the desk, each labeled with dates and categories: financial records, communication logs, photo evidence, legal consultation. Legal consultation. My hand shook as I opened the first folder. Bank statements, credit card records, mortgage documents, all highlighted and annotated in Owen's careful handwriting. Notes in the margins pointed out unusual expenses, late-night charges, payments to restaurants and bars I'd visited with Damien. The second folder was worse. Screenshots of my social media posts, printed emails, text message logs. He'd documented everything, every late night, every unexplained absence, every public display that had humiliated him. But it was the third folder that made my blood run cold. Photos. Not just the viral videos, but pictures I didn't know existed. Me and Damien at lunch, walking close together. Me leaving work late, adjusting my lipstick in my car mirror. Me at the rooftop party, my body language unmistakably intimate. Someone had been watching. Someone had been documenting. At the bottom of the pile was a business card. Davidson, Martinez and Associates, Family Law. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly put everything back, slipping out of the study and back to our bedroom. But sleep was impossible. Owen wasn't just hurt. Owen wasn't just angry. Owen was building a case. The morning of the investor dinner, I woke up to an empty house. Owen had taken Eva to school and left for work without saying goodbye. The silence felt ominous, like the calm before a hurricane. I spent the day at the salon, getting my hair and makeup done, trying on dresses until I found the perfect one. Midnight blue, elegant but striking. If this was going to be my moment to cement my place in the company's future, I wanted to look unforgettable. But as I prepared, I couldn't shake the image of those files, those photographs, that business card. Damien picked me up at 7, looking devastating in his tailored tuxedo. The car ride to the downtown hotel was filled with champagne and strategy talk, but I found myself distracted, checking my phone for messages from Owen. Nothing. "You seem nervous," Damien observed as we pulled up to the hotel. "Just excited," I lied. The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, round tables draped in ivory linens, the city's business elite mingling over cocktails and ambition. I felt like I belonged here, like this was the life I was meant to be living. Damien introduced me to investors, clients, industry leaders. I was charming, articulate, magnetic. People remembered me, asked for my card, suggested future collaborations. This was what success looked like. "You're a natural," Damien murmured as we took our seats for dinner. "You were born for this world." "I'm learning that about myself." "Good, because I have plans for you, Levana. Big plans." His hand found mine under the table, and I didn't pull away. The speeches began during the main course. Damien spoke about vision, about the future of the company, about the exceptional team that had brought us to this moment. When he mentioned my name, the applause was genuine and warm. I felt vindicated. This was my world now. These were my people. Whatever was happening at home, whatever Owen was planning, this was real and this was mine. I excused myself to the restroom to touch up my lipstick and check my phone. Still nothing from Owen, which was strange. He usually texted during Eva's bedtime routine, sending me photos or funny quotes. When I returned to the ballroom, I noticed a commotion near the entrance. A server was speaking with the maitre d', gesturing toward our table. My stomach clenched with an inexplicable dread. "Everything okay?" I asked Damien as I sat down. "Fine, just some confusion about a delivery." But his eyes were scanning the room now, and I followed his gaze to see a man in a dark suit approaching our table. He looked official, serious, like he had business that couldn't wait. "Levana Thorne?" he asked when he reached us. "Yes?" "You've been served." He handed me a thick manila envelope and walked away, leaving me staring at the formal documents in my hands. The entire table had gone quiet, conversations dying as people realized something significant was happening. With shaking fingers, I opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words blurred as I read them, but certain phrases jumped out. Irreconcilable differences, custody arrangements, division of assets, evidence of marital misconduct. I looked up to find every eye at the table on me, the entire ballroom seeming to lean in to witness my humiliation. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the street outside, and there, standing under a streetlight with perfect composure, was Owen. He was watching. He was waiting. He had planned this moment with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. The timing, the location, the public nature of it, all calculated for maximum impact. "Levana?" Damien's voice seemed to come from far away. "What is it?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The papers felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds, and I could hear the whispers starting around us, phones being pulled out, the beginning of what would become another viral moment. But this time, I wasn't the star. I was the spectacle. The hotel lobby became my purgatory. I stumbled out of the ballroom with the divorce papers clutched in my hands, Damien trailing behind me with damage control urgency. "Levana, wait. Let's talk about this." But I barely heard him. The papers were comprehensive, devastating in their detail. Owen hadn't just filed for divorce. He'd built an airtight case for everything. Custody, assets, spousal support. Every late night, every public kiss, every social media post had been catalogued and weaponized. "How long has he been planning this?" I whispered. "Who cares? This is just paperwork. We can fight this." I looked at Damien, really looked at him, and saw something I'd missed before. The calculation in his eyes, the way he was already stepping back, creating distance. "We? Well, you can fight this. You have options, legal recourse. You're already pulling away." The realization hit me like cold water. You're already protecting yourself. "Levana, be reasonable. This complicates things. For both of us. For the company." Through the lobby's glass doors, I could see Owen still standing under the streetlight, patient as a statue. He wasn't gloating, wasn't angry. He was simply finished. "I need to talk to him." "That's not a good idea. You should call a lawyer first, get your story straight." "My story?" I turned to face Damien fully. "What story? The one where I destroyed my marriage for a man who's already abandoning me the moment things get complicated." "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you got exactly what you wanted. The campaign success, the company growth, the thrill of the chase, and now you're ready to move on to the next conquest." Damien's mask slipped just enough for me to see the truth underneath. I had been useful, exciting, a challenge to win. But I had never been the prize. I had been the game. I walked outside into the cool night air, my heels clicking against the pavement as I approached Owen. He looked exactly the same as always, calm, composed, unremarkable in the way I'd once found boring and now found terrifying. "You planned this," I said when I reached him. "Yes." "The timing, the location, the public humiliation." "Yes." "How long?" "Since the first video went viral. Since you decided that our marriage was worth less than applause from strangers." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain that it wasn't that simple. But standing there with the divorce papers in my hands and my career crumbling behind me, the words felt hollow. "I never meant for it to go this far." "Yes, you did." His voice was quiet but certain. "You meant every choice, Levana. You meant every kiss, every post, every moment you chose him over us. You just didn't mean for there to be consequences." "Owen, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "Read the papers, Levana. Really read them." I looked down at the documents, scanning through the legal language until I found what he meant. The evidence section was extensive. Photos, videos, social media posts, financial records showing dinners and gifts. But there was more. Testimony from witnesses. Statements from colleagues who'd observed inappropriate workplace behavior. Documentation of my lies about working late when I was actually at bars with Damien. And then I saw it. Plaintiff requests full custody of minor child Eva Thorne, citing respondent's pattern of prioritizing extramarital relationships over parental responsibilities. "You're taking Eva. I'm protecting Eva. From a mother who's more interested in being seen than being present." The words hit like physical blows. "I'm a good mother." "Are you? When's the last time you helped with homework without checking your phone? When's the last time you attended a school event without posting about it? When's the last time you chose her over your image?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. "She drew us, Owen. She drew our family falling apart, and I told her it would get better. I promised her." "It will get better. For her. She'll have stability, consistency, a parent who prioritizes her well-being over social media validation." "And what about me?" Owen looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Pity. "You'll have what you wanted, Levana. You'll be free to build your empire, to chase your applause, to be the star of your own story. You just can't use our family as collateral damage anymore." The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, still in my midnight blue dress, my makeup smeared, and my phone dead. The investor dinner felt like a fever dream, but the divorce papers on the nightstand proved it had been real. My mother knocked softly and entered with coffee and the morning paper. My heart sank when I saw her expression. "It's already in the society section," she said quietly. "The photos, the story. Someone live-tweeted the whole thing." I took the paper with shaking hands. There it was. Local marketing executive served divorce papers at company gala. The photo showed me in the lobby, papers scattered, Damien in the background, already walking away. The comments online were brutal. The same people who'd celebrated my success were now dissecting my failure with gleeful cruelty. The narrative had flipped completely. I was no longer the empowered woman breaking barriers. I was the cheating wife who got her comeuppance. "Priya from your company called," my mother continued. "They're conducting an internal review. Something about workplace conduct policies." Of course they were. Damien would throw me under the bus to protect himself and the company. I'd gone from rising star to liability overnight. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Saw the news. This is just a setback. We'll figure out the comeback story." But I was tired of stories, tired of narratives and comebacks and image management. For the first time in months, I wanted to stop performing and start being honest. I had destroyed everything real in pursuit of something that was never real at all. 3 weeks later, I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing Owen's settlement offer. It was fair, generous even, considering the evidence he had against me. But fairness wasn't what hurt. What hurt was Eva's statement, recorded during the custody evaluation. "I want to live with Daddy because he doesn't take pictures of me for the internet, and he always listens to my stories." What hurt was the realization that my daughter saw me as a stranger who happened to live in her house. What hurt was understanding that Owen's revenge wasn't cruel or vindictive, it was simply accurate. "Your husband has been very thorough," my lawyer said, closing the file. "If you want to contest any of this, we can try, but given the documentation—" "No." I signed the papers with a hand that barely shook. "He's right, about all of it." That evening, I drove past our old apartment and saw Owen and Eva through the window, working on homework together at the kitchen table. They looked peaceful, complete, like a family that had healed after removing its poison. I had wanted to be seen, to be celebrated, to matter, but I had forgotten that I already mattered to the people who mattered most, and by the time I remembered, it was too late. The applause had turned to silence, and the silence was deafening.